Hi, it's Mayor Walter Sendzik here, and today is the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. This is a significant day for a lot of countries, and we're marking this here in St. Catharines by talking about the history and the importance, and also the local connection to the end of the war and through World War II. So I'm joined by Lieutenant Colonel Chris Cincio from the Lincoln and Welland Regiment. And Chris is a wealth of information, a wealth of history when it comes to the Lincoln and Welland Regiment. And he's proudly the Lieutenant Colonel. He's from St. Catharines, and it's an absolute honor to have Chris joining me today. So, Chris, as the Lieutenant Colonel, Commander of Lincoln Welland Regiment, what does today mean to you?
It's a significant day, I think, for the whole, city of St. Catharines and the Niagara region and Niagara Falls and Welland. If you look back on history, you need to put yourself in the context of the times. So if you put yourself back into May 1945, Canada, probably approximately a population of 9 or 10 million people. And we had probably about 900,000 men and women in the armed services, with the Navy and the Air Force and the Army. Now, every family, probably every family, had one or two sons or daughters in the forces. And the nation itself suffered a significant amount of casualties, on the sea and in the air and on the land. And you at that time knew that this war was coming to an end, and you hoped or you prayed to God that you wouldn't lose a family member or lose another family member. Yeah. So if you can just imagine the relief of knowing that this war in Europe was over on May 8th, and that you knew that your family member, your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, was coming back home. And, that was very much in doubt, especially, through the campaign after D-Day, right through till May 1945, yeah. Whether your son or daughter or brother or sister was coming home. And on May 8th, 1945, and we knew that they were coming home. And, I've seen pictures of the celebrations on St. Paul Street in St. Catharines, and you could see the jubilation, the crowds of just knowing that that was over. It's just completely a significant event. And, there's still a lot of people in St. Catharines nowadays that, it's their fathers, their grandfathers that were around at that time, that were one of those people that served in our country and came back home.
And I think that's the key to what the commemoration means today is both the acknowledgement of the great sacrifice of so many men who went to fight and never came back, but it's also those who came back and carried the burden of war with them. And so you and I, we looked at those photos of the St. Paul Street and the jubilation and the relief, but also acknowledging they carried with them the weight of war. And then that's, as you, I think, would know in your role as Lieutenant Colonel, it's the weight of war is also something that goes sometimes unacknowledged.
I'm very lucky and very fortunate to have met and spoken to a lot of the veterans in my day, and especially veterans, from the Lincoln and Welland Regiment, and from my father that was in the 1st Polish Armored Division. And some of the things and the stories that you hear, it really puts perspective. And Your Worship, when we were in Bergen-op-Zoom together in October of last year, we heard a lot of those stories.
Yeah.
And, I heard the story about the Lincoln and Welland Regiment Association went to a great battle of the regiments, at Kapellschevere in Holland, and they were doing the tour of Europe, and through, with the bus, they were all on the tour bus and everything else. The bus stopped at Kapellschevere, and nobody wanted to get off the bus. And Kapellschevere was a huge battle for the Lincoln and Welland. And yeah, there's a few of those stories. You see these things on TV and you think, oh, maybe that's just Hollywood or that's whatever. No, if you dig deep and you dig deep into the history of our regiment and other regiments, these things happen, and it's not Hollywood. It's reality, and
Right.
they're incredible.
And that's why the acknowledgement of May 8th and the importance of marking the day of the end of World War II is also an opportunity to reflect on all of those who gave so much during the actual entire operation, the entire war period. And just in context, the Lincoln and Welland Regiment. So you touched on Bergen op Zoom and Igloo, and they played an important role in a number of different theaters, number of different battles. From your perspective, as Lieutenant Colonel Commander of Lincoln Welland Regiment, so that connection, that importance, can you just touch on that for people who may not be familiar with that history?
Sort of over the connections over in Europe, Your Worship?
Yeah, like there may be people listening who just they don't know that the depth of impact that the Lincoln and Welland Regiment had on places like Bergen op Zoom.
Wow, there's places all through Europe. You can start through into Normandy, in closing the Falaise Gap, going through Trun and Saint-Lambert-sur-Dive with the South Alberta Regiment, closing the Falaise Gap. Lincoln and Welland Regiment with the South Alberta Regiment and the Argylls were right there, with the 1st Polish Armored Division on top of the hill. But I know there was a number of commemorations. The Lincoln and Welland Regiment was the first Canadian unit, I think, across the Seine River. Maybe the first Allied unit, but I have to check my history on that. And I know they had a number of celebrations there last year. That's going in through France and into Belgium and Moorbrugge. We went there and over by Igloo. Bergen op Zoom, how did the connections that we have there with the mayor and the people? You remember there were 60,000 people there at that parade.
Yeah, that was outstanding. Just it was one of those life moments, and you see that you can feel the gratitude. And then 75 years later, you just sense that gratitude of generations of people thankful for what the Lincoln and Welland Regiment did, because they were the first unit into the city.
And Bergen op Zoom is not a large town, and to have that many people there, you saw the flags, and and we today are the benefactors of what those men did for us as Canadians, and for the Dutch and for the Belgians 75 years ago. And it's very much alive there. And especially even now at this time of year, because the rest of Holland was liberated down in May 1945. The southern end in Bergen op Zoom, we were there in the fall of 44.
Yeah.
So
put it in context. It took six more months to push that far. And I was just saying it, for us to take the train from Bergen op Zoom to Amsterdam was a couple hours. For the Allies to push that far in, it took 6 months. I just think of that in terms of the scale of operation. That's something to behold.
Yeah, very tough ground there too in the Polder country and in Zeeland, trying to move and maneuver.
So how are you going to? So now that we're in this period of stay home, stay safe, trying to prevent the spread of COVID-19. How are you going to mark what are you doing today?
Well, I was kind of saving things for tomorrow because it's the actual signing date is the 8th, right?
Yeah.
And the Dutch liberation, I think, was complete by the 5th. I think the German forces in Holland surrendered on the 5th of May. To answer your question, nothing immediately special because we're still in the middle of this COVID thing, and the regiment's called out again to help out. But I sort of live that, and I think about it every day. You know, that's just something that you live with every day, and
Yeah.
you think about those things that have gone on. And for somebody in my position, there's so much of the history that I've learned, and so many commemorations that I've taken part in. Just I'm the luckiest man in the world to be the commanding officer of the Lincoln and Welland Regiment.
You are. That is true. It is a much revered regiment. It's been around since how long, Lieutenant Colonel? Since the
1794. So we're looking at 224 years, Walter.
And that's an amazing length of history of protecting our country and also fighting for freedom around the world. And so I guess what I'd like to say is, first, thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Cincio, for all that you've done, for being a part of the commemorations last year, and also for shining a light on the history of the Lincoln and Welland Regiment and its impact and in World War II. And so as we mark the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, we remember, we reflect, and we honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms, and those who also paid that sacrifice but came back and lived with the burden of war in our community. And so I think it's a great opportunity to share stories, Lieutenant Colonel, share stories from loved ones, grandfathers, uncles, dads who didn't come back or who did come back and really were affected by the war. So that's what we're hoping for. And then in the future, maybe we'll have a parade, a Victory Day parade in St. Catharines to properly acknowledge the history of the end of the war here in St. Catharines.
Yeah, Walter, I just wanted to mention about people probably listening in might not be aware of it, but you and I sort of hatched this idea about that Victory in Europe parade to have here in St. Catharines, and it was supposed to happen this Saturday. We had the assistance of everybody from the city was behind us, and the regiment, my chain of command, was supportive.
Yeah.
We had all the legions on board, the cadet corps, 10th Battery Association was going to take. It would have been a great parade, but we're going to have to postpone things, and like you said, maybe celebrate that in the fall or maybe next year. But the one point I was going to throw in there, you talked about commemorating and that. With any luck, because this COVID thing has put things, slowed things down a bit, the Lincoln Welland Regiment, hopefully the foundation supporting the open of the Niagara Military Heritage Center on Sodom Road near the QEW, hopefully that'll open up in the fall, and there'll be all kinds of local military history for people there to come and see, from displays and that we'll have set up and vehicles, and we got quite the space we're developing there at the hangar, and
great.
That's all about commemoration as well, right?
Yeah, that'd be great. And I remember just as we end off, I remember there was a photo, and I think there was also a Lincoln and Welland Regiment group during World War II that came back in '45. I believe that there was not only just the VE Day celebration, but then I think it was about, because there was photos in January where they were getting off the train and coming into town. And so, as you said, it wasn't just one wave of soldiers coming back. There was a couple of waves of soldiers that came back.
Yeah, because some of them that served overseas longer they were allowed to, not allowed, but they came home sooner than some that had been overseas for less years. I guess there was I don't know if it would be a raffle or whatever to try to get home quicker. But those photos were from in January '46, and the parade that we were supposed to have on Saturday would have started off at the old train station on St. Paul Street West, and down St. Paul Street, we would have stopped in front of City Hall, exactly, where your predecessor would have welcomed the regiment back in January '46, and then marched off back to the armory. for
All right.
that final dismissal. Which
So we've got some time. We've got some time to to do that parade, and we're going to do it.
Yeah, we'll get it in.
I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day, and it was an honor to be able to talk to you. And again, as the Lieutenant Colonel Commander of the Lincoln Welland Regiment, you've done an outstanding job, and you are the fact that you're a homegrown person who's been able to now lead the Lincoln and Welland Regiment. That is something that we're all proud of. So I just want to say thank you for that.
And thanks very much. Thanks very much for the invite today, Your Worship. Thank you.
No problem. We'll talk to you soon.
Right. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.